Nell and LaTisha Scott, and what was supposed to be a calm sit-down quickly spiraled into pure chaos. From bringing up Chris Fletcher to Marsau Scott being dragged into the mix, and even old Atlanta rumors making a comeback. This conversation had layers. So stick with me, because the more you hear, the more you'll realize just how messy and complicated this situation really is. When Nell and LaTisha decided to meet up, the goal was clear: clear the air, talk it out, and try to move forward in a more positive direction. But as we all know, on love and marriage, Huntsville, it is never that simple. The sit-down started off with surface-level politeness, a few casual greetings, and then quickly shifted into the real reason they were there. Nell wasted no time in saying she wanted to discuss the way things went down at the recent girls' event. She brought up how she didn't appreciate LaTisha getting in Chris Fletcher's face, making the atmosphere uncomfortable. For Nell, it wasn't just about one small moment. It was about setting boundaries and making it clear that respect was needed moving forward. LaTisha, on the other hand, came into the conversation with a mix of defensiveness and tension. She tried to downplay her own actions, saying she didn't remember being on 100 the way Nell described. But Nell stood firm, saying that whether LaTisha remembered or not, the energy she gave off in that moment was undeniable. And that's when things really started to take a turn. LaTisha shifted the focus from the event to bringing up her husband, Marsau Scott, and how his name kept being dragged into situations. Suddenly, instead of just addressing her own behavior, she was trying to flip the spotlight back onto Nell and Chris Fletcher. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Because if you've been watching the show long enough, you know that whenever Atlanta comes up, drama is not far behind. LaTisha brought up how Marsau and Chris had met in Atlanta to look at some commercial spots, and from there, the rumors started swirling once again. She implied that Chris Fletcher had to take a selfie with Marsau just to prove to Nell that he was where he said he was. But Nell was not about to let that narrative slide. She pushed back immediately, saying that was not true, that she knew exactly where her husband was and what they were doing. Nell made it very clear she was not about to let anyone spin the story and make it look like she didn't trust her. And right here, you can really see the difference in the way these two women handle conflict. Nell was calm, steady, and controlled. She never raised her voice, never lost her cool, and yet she got her point across with clarity. Meanwhile, LaTisha started getting more and more defensive, more focused on shifting blame, and it came across as scattered. At one point, Nell even said that LaTisha had this way of making people question themselves, like, am I really raising my voice? When in reality, Nell knew she wasn't doing any more than LaTisha was. That right there showed that dynamic Nell wasn't going to fall into the trap of being painted as the aggressive one, when she knew she was holding her composure. But the conversation didn't just stop there. LaTisha tried to accuse Nell of not taking ownership, saying that she was deflecting instead of admitting her role in the tension. Nell immediately clapped back, saying she was taking ownership and that LaTisha was twisting things around. That's when the Atlanta situation came right back up, with Nell reminding her that the only reason Chris Fletcher's name ever came into the mix was because Marsau brought it up first. She made it plain if Marsau hadn't been talking about it, there wouldn't have been an issue. And you could see LaTisha struggling with that point. Because instead of addressing it head-on, she started circling back with, well, it doesn't matter who brought it up first. This back and forth kept escalating until the entire conversation lost direction. What was supposed to be about moving forward and clearing the air became a messy argument about who said what, who brought up whose husband, and who was being disrespectful. Nell kept saying she wanted a respectful conversation, while LaTisha accused her of being disrespectful. It was like watching a tennis match where neither side was really listening, just volleying accusations back and forth. At one point, Nell even tried to shut it down and said, I'm not having this conversation with you. When you're ready to talk to me, hit me back up. And LaTisha fired right back with, oh girl, we ain't got to talk. That was the moment where it was clear this sit-down was not going to fix anything. What made it even more awkward was the fact that the meeting spot wasn't some casual hangout. It was a place where LaTisha actually holds meetings with parents from her kids' school. So here they were, voices rising, tension thick in the air, in a location that was supposed to represent professionalism. LaTisha eventually said she wasn't about to have a yelling match in there, basically cutting the whole thing short. Just like that, what could have been a productive coffee date turned into a disaster. From the outside looking in, it's clear Nell walked away from that moment with her dignity intact. She stayed calm, she stayed collected, and she didn't allow herself to be dragged into the chaos. LaTisha, however, came across as defensive, condescending, and unwilling to really listen. Instead of owning her part in the tension, she tried to shift the blame onto Chris Fletcher, onto Marsau, and onto everyone else except herself. And that's why this moment stood out so much, because it highlighted the difference between wanting resolution and wanting to be right. Nell was there for resolution. LaTisha was there to prove herself. Now, here's where I want you to really think about this, because as messy as it looked, this conversation gave us a lot of insight into the dynamics of the group. Marsau Scott may not have been at the table, but his name was right in the middle of it. Chris Fletcher may not have been there either, but his actions were being dissected. And Nell, she was showing the exact kind of energy that keeps people watching, because she didn't need to be loud to make her point. She let her composure do the talking, and that's a powerful move, especially on a show where most people think yelling equals strength. What's even more telling is how LaTisha leaned on the same old Atlanta storyline, something fans have heard time and time again. Every time